Oh shit! Let me go!
My name is Robert, and this is my entry into the International Quarantine Car Show. It's a 1926 Model T Ford. Considering the car is 94 years old, it's all original metal, original paint. We have a new aluminum roof and a nice big moon roof that I'm looking forward to driving in the summertime when all this is over. So there's a custom frame to support the massive 12-valve Cummins diesel motor. Instead of having one large intercooler that came with the truck, we decided to break it into two smaller ones. These are from Dodge Neon cars, and it just gives it a more radical look, I think. Kind of looking at the rad as well too, this actually comes from a Bobcat, so it's actually quite a small rad, but it's very thick and actually really cools the motor down really quite nicely. The other thing is I didn't want to have kind of the typical rat rod vintage grills, and so actually Stoney came up with this idea of having the aluminum grills, and it kind of gives more of a high-tech or sci-fi look, almost like from a fighter jet. The axle is from a Dodge 3500 truck. I think the nose cone is really cool. It's kind of reminiscent of the 1960s F1 racers, and I just like that look as opposed to kind of, like I said, a typical grill that you see on most rat rods. And next I'd like to point out the air filter system. People may recognize that this is a Volkswagen gas heater that's been repurposed for the air induction into the turbo, and the turbo's been turned kind of upside down to allow for it to be fitted in, but also it just is more visible and has I think a meaner look to it as well too, because you can see it much more clearly. Next is the exhaust system. Very cool system. There was not enough clearance under the car in order to put the exhaust under the car. I always like the idea of having a side pipe anyways, and Sony was able to do this by cutting back the door about 8 inches, which allows the door to still open. The exhaust then comes underneath the axle, and then it ends up with this very cool looking tip. These are the turn signals as well as the hazard lights, and what's interesting about them is that they're LED flame lights, and at nighttime it really looks like a real flame. It's really a very, very cool concept. I'm a sci-fi fan, and I didn't want a typical rat rod interior. I didn't want any toilet seats, I didn't want any kind of wrench shifters, and I wanted it to look like a very futuristic cockpit. Now check out these seats. Very futuristic. The upholstery is actually foam kneeling pads, and you can see that it's actually very soft. It's a very comfortable ride. The other feature is the headphones. They're high speakers, Bluetooth of course, and they can be operated separately or together. Next I want to point out the interior lighting. This is a switch here, and when you get into the car, the dome lights up. And as you recognize, the dome lights are actually the arc reactor from Iron Man. Also, the floor lights up as well too. You see that the Echo Dot is coming on now, and I can communicate with the Echo. It will communicate with the iPad, and then the iPad can hook up with the Bluetooth speakers in the back. And I can use it for anything. I can use it for music, I can use it for GPS, you can watch videos, you can play games on it. This is a joystick from an F-18. and it's got multiple functions, which is really cool. So again, I was looking for a very cool shifter, and all these buttons actually work, and I'll demonstrate them to you. First of all is the air suspension. Push it forward. You can feel the car rising. You can see the change in pressure in the bag pressure and the tank pressure. And to lower the suspension, it's the other way around. And you can see again it is recorded on the gauges. This button on the bottom is to turn the speakers on. This turns on the speaker on my left-hand side. In order for the right to turn on, push it up. And for the passenger, I just push to the right. The trigger here is the horn, and if you push it part way down, you get that staccato sound. And if you push it all the way down, it makes a beautiful irritating sound. This switch here turns on the headlights and also turns on the luminescent interior wiring. This switch here turns on the air compressor for the air suspension. And the air is compressed into 2 aircraft oxygen cylinders. Thanks for watching the video. Can't wait till all this bullshit is over, and we'll see you on the road.